the Making an Impact podcast series by Schroders, sharing ESG insights from our sustainable and investment professionals.
Okay, firstly, Mervyn, thank you very much for agreeing to be featured in our very first podcast in this Making an Impact series, right? So without further ado, I will jump straight right into my first question. So imagine we're now heading up to the 23rd floor, Mervyn. What would be your 30-second pitch to someone who knows nothing about ESG in the finance sector?
I would say I think sustainability is transforming the world. People are caring more about climate change, water issues, natural capital, how labor is being treated. And all that means policies are changing, the way business functions are changing. And that has an implication for investing. It's transforming investing. And I think that's why there's so much interest in sustainable investing and achieving sustainable objectives through that investment process. I think at Schroders, we are here to help clients to really be able to deliver that.
Thanks for the pitch. I think you definitely sold it to me. So we all know that you joined Schroders last year in this new role as our head of sustainability strategy for APAC. Could you share with us your career journey to get to where you are today?
So my career has been quite erratic. So I've been a diplomat, I've been a central banker, I've been in equity sales, I've been as a sovereign credit analyst, an ESG rating analyst, a whole bunch of different things. I think the thread that has really kind of that pulls that all together is an interest in achieving objectives with finance. And I think sustainability for me, I think in particular, is a really worthwhile objective, and understanding that the financial system is a great way of really channeling huge amounts of capital to meet those objectives is one of the kind of key drivers for me.
So it definitely sounds like you had a really interesting career journey, having been in different roles. So how do you decide to choose sustainability and make it your career?
So I wouldn't pretend that it was a really well thought out plan. So I think my first ever job as a graduate in Citigroup, I had sustainability as part of my mandate, as one of a small part of my overall inequities. And then I left to do other things on working on financial stability policy during the financial crisis, working on US and UK economic relations, like a whole bunch of different things. And I think what really changed was, I think maybe 5-6 years ago, MSCI called me up and said, you know what, we're looking for someone who can take over in APAC to really look at how we can achieve sustainability objectives, build ESG business in finance. And I think that was when I realized, okay, I can do something I'm interested in, as well as taking advantage of all the skills that I've had built before. But was it like an actively planned role? I would say not.
Right, I see. Well, I mean, we all know that sustainability is a really new area. So I guess a lot of us might be curious to know, how does a typical day look like for you? And, what are some of the challenges in your current role?
I think a typical day, I think, not to be cliched, but there's often no typical day, but it's a lot about meeting both internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. Internal stakeholders is partly because there's so many people involved in sustainability at Schroders. It can be marketing, it can be IT, it can be compliance, it can be investment teams. There's a huge number of people. And so getting to know people, getting to know what's happening to be able to actually deliver initiatives is key. But then external clients or external stakeholders, and that can be regulators, it can be NGOs, it can be our clients. Understanding what's happening in the system, understanding what our clients need is also a huge part of my particular role. And so I think actually it's a great way of meeting people, this job I have.
Awesome. And I'm sure you get this question pretty often. What's your advice, to anyone looking to get into ESG? I guess both to your colleagues or anyone thinking about a career change in general.
Yes. So ESG as a world is evolving very, very quickly, and the industry and kind of things people look at. And I think the first is about learning the language of ESG, which you can do with the CFA ESG program. There's a lot of training material, both internally and externally out there. But I think once you can converse on ESG to understand how quickly things are changing and understand what the system is, you need to go and network and talk to all the different people who are involved in ESG. And I think that can be NGOs, it can be investment consultants, it can be legal firms, it can be other investment firms and asset owners. There's a huge number of people working in ESG now. And I think the best way to understand kind of all the things happening is having those conversations, even though it's quite hard during COVID. But I think people are more open to Zoom calls, virtual coffees, those sort of things as well.
So my final question, and I guess looking into the crystal ball, what do you think is the biggest trend in the area of ESG for 2022?
I think one of the big trends of the last 2 years is for companies, asset managers, governments to set net zero targets, hoping to achieve emissions reduction and then reaching net zero by 2050, 2060, give or take. Now, I think when you're trying to deliver net zero, that's actually a much bigger challenge. You have to make plans now to actually get to net zero by 2050. And for our clients, you have to change your portfolio allocations. Potentially, you have to engage with companies at an early stage. There's a lot that could impact our clients. And for companies, they have to change their business models, make plans on their investment. There's a lot of things there. And so I think the trend for 2022 is moving from setting net zero to delivering net zero, or at least making plans to.
Great. Thanks again, Mervyn, for your time, in sharing your insights with us in this very first podcast. And, we look forward to speaking with you again at some point in time. Thanks, Mervyn.
Thanks, Daniel.
This is prepared by Schroders for information and general circulation only, and the opinions expressed are subject to change without notice. It does not constitute an offer or solicitation to deal in units of any Schroders funds and does not regard to the specific investment objectives, financial situation, or the particular needs of any specific person who may receive this.